Well, hello everyone, and welcome to Uncivil Law. I hope you're having a great day. And the story of the day is Steve Bannon, former White House chief strategist, former participant in the Trump campaign, right-wing populist guy, very controversial figure, has been indicted in the Southern District of New York by the United States federal government for essentially fraud in relating to mismanagement of money from a fund to help fund the wall. So as we will read in the indictment, Steve Bannon and others formed a fund that people would help to go fund the wall from private money. They raised quite a lot of money, and they said that certain people would not be accepting salaries. Certain people did accept salaries. And so the United States government is claiming that this is fraud. So we're going to read the indictment and see what they are alleging and just try to give some commentary on where we think this is going. Now, it is of interest here that it's the Southern District of New York because, as you may be aware, President Trump recently fired the U.S. attorney from the Southern District of New York. It was about 3 months ago, 4 months ago, something in that neighborhood, where he fired the guy. And there was some suggestion that it might have something to do with the Epstein investigation. And now, of course, the suggestion is it might have something to do with Steve Bannon's investigation. So I saw this little idea floating around / conspiracy theory that Donald Trump fired the U.S. attorney in the Southern District of New York in an effort to shield Steve Bannon from prosecution or whatever. So I don't really particularly believe any of that, but it was something worth noting that it is true it's the Southern District of New York, and it is true that Trump recently fired the U.S. attorney there, and it's a different U.S. attorney, so that's a thing that happened. So whether or not it has anything to do with Bannon or Epstein or anything else, who knows? But it's an interesting item of note. So let's not waste any more time. Let's get right into the indictment. So this is Southern District of New York, United States Federal Court. United States of America versus Brian Kolfage, Stephen Bannon, Andrew Badalto, and Timothy Shea. So 4 people who are apparently involved in this criminal conspiracy. So let's get going with this. Brian Kolfage, Stephen Bannon, Andrew Badalto, and Timothy Shea, the defendants and others, orchestrated a scheme to defraud hundreds of thousands of donors, including donors in the Southern District of New York, in connection with an online crowdfunding campaign ultimately known as We Build the Wall that raised more than $25 million to build the wall along the southern border of the United States. It was a particularly good GoFundMe campaign. They raised wild money, $25 million in donors. To induce donors to donate to the campaign, Kolfage and Bannon, each of whom, as detailed herein, exerted significant control over We Build the Wall, repeatedly and falsely assured the public that Kolfage would not take a penny in salary or compensation, and that 100% of funds raised would be used in the execution of our mission and purpose because, as Bannon publicly stated, we're a volunteer organization. So this is essentially fraud in the inducement. So, there's 2 different kinds of fraud you can have: fraud in the inducement and fraud in fact. So fraud in fact would be if we were doing things other with the money than we said. So we fraud in the inducement is what we say to get you to do it. Fraud in fact would be what we actually did. So fraud in fact would be we didn't actually spend money to build the wall. We actually spent the money to do X, but we didn't lie to you while we were doing it. In the alternative, we did actually build the wall, but we lied to you in order to get your money. So fraud in the inducement is we tricked you into giving money, but we spent the money as we said. Fraud in fact would be we didn't trick you into giving us money for different reasons, but we spent it on reasons other than what we said we were going to do. So this is fraud in the inducement, in case you ever wanted to know the difference. We tricked you into giving us money by inducing you using false promises. Okay, so these representations were false. In truth, Brian Kolfage, Stephen Bannon, Andrew Badalto, and Timothy Shea, the defendants, collectively received hundreds of thousands of dollars in donor funds from We Build the Wall, which they each used in manners inconsistent with the organization's public representations. In particular, Colfage covertly took more than $350,000 in funds that had been donated to We Build the Wall for his personal use, while Bannon, through a nonprofit organization under his control, Non-for-Profit One, received over $1 million from We Build the Wall, which Bannon used to do, among other things, secretly pay Colfage and cover hundreds of thousands of dollars in personal expenses. Whether or not that's the same thing as taking a salary or compensation is a reasonable question, but $1 million is a lot of work related expenditures, so that does seem like a lot. To conceal the payments to Colfage from We Build the Wall, Colfage, Bannon, Bellado, and Shea devised a scheme to route those payments from We Build the Wall to Colfage indirectly through non-for-profit and a shell company under Shea's control under Money Avenues. Okay, yeah, that's pretty suspicious. If you're funneling money and going through shell companies to try to hide your tracks instead of just doing it as a line item, it looks like an effort to conceal, right? So that looks pretty suspicious. We're funneling money through different avenues to try to either clean the money, which is classic of embezzlement, right? So we want to wash the money with good money to make it all look good, or we want to conceal what's going on, things like that. So that's not super encouraging. They did so using fake invoices and sham vendor arrangements. So that would be fraud too. You're creating fake invoices and sham arrangements. So that's fake business papers. You're creating fraudulent business documents. That's a no-no. Among other ways to ensure that, as Colfage noted in a text message to Bellado, that his pay arrangement be kept confidential and on a need-to-know basis. That if true, that's not really looking super positive. Yeah, we're using third-party intermediaries as a method to conceal/wash the money, and we are using fake invoices and sham arrangements which don't really exist. So we're creating fake documents, fake business documents, which is illegal, to make things look like other than what they want to be. So it looks like an effort to conceal. That's not super positive. Background on We Build the Wall. All right, let's learn a little bit more. On or about September 17, 2018, Brian Colfage, the defendant, with assistance of others, launched a fundraising campaign originally called We Build the Wall on a crowdfunding website, which I'm pretty sure was GoFundMe. But the United States Attorney has a tendency of not mentioning things by name when they're like third parties to prevent from dragging them up. They tend to do this a lot, where they say like Organization 1 or Crowdfunding Organization 1. They do that a lot where they don't mention things by name. According to the statements on the webpage for We Build the Wall on the crowdfunding website, the campaign was raising funds to donate to the United States federal government for construction of a wall at the southern border of the United States. The webpage also stated that 100% of your donations would be given to the government for construction of the wall, and if the campaign could not obtain its goal, it would refund every single penny. The We Build the Wall campaign was an immediate fundraising success. Within the first week, Brian Colfage, the defendant, with the assistance of Timothy Shea, the defendant, raised approximately $17 million within a week. Excellent. Despite its early success, the campaign also drew scrutiny, including questions about Colfage's background and the campaign's plan give the money raised to the federal government for the purpose of constructing the wall. Yeah, that doesn't really work. That doesn't really work. You can't do that anyway. There's a federal law called the Anti-Deficiency Act, which basically in very long speak, it prohibits the federal government from using private monies for public funding. You can't do this. It's actually illegal. The federal government can't spend money. The only way the federal government can spend money is through an act of Congress, right? So only it's actually in the Constitution. It actually says it. I'm going to paraphrase the language, but it's actually in the Constitution. It's only by an act of Congress that draws money on the Treasury can money be spent, is basically the language. So there's a federal statute called the Anti-Deficiency Act. And what it says, it says basically specifically the federal government can't use money except from the federal treasury or as an apportionment of Congress to do stuff. So this plan doesn't make any sense because it's in violation of the Anti-Deficiency Act. You can't raise money and give it to the federal government and the federal government then spend it on whatever. They can only spend money that Congress directs them to spend. So this plan doesn't make any sense from square one. You think Steve Bannon, being senior advisor in the White House, would know about something called the Anti-Deficiency Act. It's kind of a big deal. All right. Just, yeah. All right, let's press on. Despite its early success, it grew a campaign about giving it to the federal government because it doesn't make any sense and it's a violation of law and it's also unconstitutional. So it doesn't make sense, it's illegal, and it's unconstitutional. You can't do that. Based on these concerns, in or around December 2018, the crowdfunding website suspended the campaign, which by that point had raised $20 million, and warned Brian Colfage, the defendant, unless he identified a legitimate non-for-profit organization in which those funds could be transferred, the crowdfunding website would return the funds. No, that's not going to work. Around the same time, Brian Colfage, the defendant, involved Stephen Bannon and Andrew Bellato, the defendants, in leadership of the campaign. Well, maybe that's why Brian didn't know about the Anti-Deficiency Act because Stephen wasn't yet involved. And he could have asked, can I do this? And no. Bannon, a political strategist and former media executive, and Bellato, an entrepreneur and venture capitalist, were already working together on Nonprofit One, which was a separate 501c4 organization founded by Bannon with the stated purpose of promoting economic nationalism and American sovereignty. I'm not 100% sure what economic nationalism is, except maybe like America first, but okay. Within days of being involved, Stephen Bannon and Andrew Bellato, the defendants, took significant control of the fundraising campaign and day-to-day activities, including financing, messaging, donor outreach, and general operations. Specifically, in or about late 2018, Bannon and Bellato, working with Brian Colfage, the defendant, oversaw the creation of a new 501c4 organization, We Build the Wall Incorporated, to which they proposed that the money had been raised by We Build the Wall could be transferred. This is a much better plan. Whether or not they qualify for 501c4 status seems dubious, because a 501c4 organization is mainly for political lobbying, but okay, sure. That seems a little bit more promising. Bannon, Bellato, and Colfage relating to wall construction with the modified purpose of funding a private construction of the wall along the southern border. This is a much more stable plan. Assuming you can get the land rights, which is a whole other set of problems, but sure. If you have the land rights, that might work. Moreover, Brian Colfage, Stephen Bannon, and Andrew Bellato, the defendants, made and caused to be made a series of representations and gave assurances to the crowdfunding website, intending to induce the crowdfunding website to release the donor funds to We Build the Wall. Yeah, representations, promises. This could be part of fraud in the inducement. These assurances included, among other things, written bylaws with conflict of interest provisions and compensation restrictions precluding insiders like Colfage, among others, from improperly misappropriating donor funds, and a promise that Colfage will take no salary and will personally not take a money of compensation from these donations. That seems a little bit suspect. Colfage, Bannon, and Bellato also agreed that the defenders would have to opt into having their construction redirected to the website, which seems fair enough because it was originally raised for one purpose and now is going somewhere else. Hopefully they didn't manufacture those consents. That would be even worse. The use of the We Build the Wall fund to perpetrate the fraud. Beginning in January 2019, Colfage, Bannon, Bellato, and Shea, the defendants, caused We Build the Wall to mislead donors, promising them repeatedly that 100% of funds would be used for the construction of the wall, and that Colfage in particular would take no salary or compensation for the new organization. You can see exactly where this is going, right? We know exactly where this is going. The U.S. government is teeing this up. It's like good storytelling. We are preluding exactly where this is going. Colfage is going to be taking lots of money within the next couple of pages. Contrary to the representation of both the donors and to the crowdfunding website, Colfage, Bannon, Bellato, and Shea worked together to misappropriate hundreds of thousands of dollars of those funds for their own personal benefit. Oops, that seems like a problem. This is also incidentally why the NRA is also in trouble with New York, which may or may not be political. Well, it's pretty political. But yeah, this is the same theory as in the broadest possible strokes. The same theory that the New York Attorney General is going after the NRA over is that they used money that was collected for the purposes of funding the organization and improperly used it to benefit themselves. So that's essentially the allegations against the NRA too. And so now they're making the same allegations and they're using these statements as methodology to prove that they improperly funded themselves. So, okay. Beginning in around, Beginning in or around January the 11th, 2019, and consistent with assurances provided to crowdfunding website, We Build the Wall announced it changed its mission to private construction and donors need to opt in. In essence, We Build the Wall's agreement with the crowdfunding website Coffage, Bannon, and Bellato the defendants had to effectively re-raise approximately $20 million they'd already raised by convincing them to opt in. To do so, Coffage, Bannon, and Bellato and the defendants caused We Build the Wall to promise donors that 100% of the funds raised would be used towards the construction of the wall, and not a penny would be used to compensate Coffage. That promise was repeatedly made in donor solicitations, public statements, social media posts, and press appearances by Coffage and Bannon, and others acting at Coffage, Bannon's, and Bellato's requests. We're setting up fraud in the inducement pretty hard. That's what we're doing over here. Look at all these many statements they made, saying all these many things that all turned out to not be true. Fraud in the inducement. That's what we're trying to do. For example, We Built the Wall's website told prospective donors that in accordance with the personal pledge and bylaws, Coffage will not profit even a single penny from We Build the Wall. Coffage similarly and repeatedly promised in fundraising solicitation emails, which Bannon and Bellato reviewed and approved, so that would go to Bannon approving them. If Bannon knows that they're lies when he's approving them, that would be a liability issues. That Coffage would not take a penny in salary or compensation. So if Bannon, signing off on it, knew for a fact that wasn't true and signed off on it, that's a problem. That's how conspiracies get made. If you know for a fact that it's not true and you sign off on it, you are well on your way to a conspiracy. This is how conspiracies start. They're an agreement between two or more parties and an overt act towards that agreement. So signing off on it would be an agreement and the overt act. It's a twofer. It's both the agreement and the overt act at one go. That's nice. Coffage posted messages on social media, including representations such as, "We promised 100% of funds raised on the crowdfunding website will only go to border wall construction. All money donated to We Build the Wall campaign goes directly to the wall, ! Not in anyone's pocket, and I'm taking nothing, ! These statements seem pretty overt in their promises. In fact, Coffage went so far as to send mass emails to his donors asking them to purchase coffee from an unrelated business, telling donors the coffee company was the only way to keep his family fed and roof over their head because Coffage was taking no money from the charity. Please buy my coffee so my kids can eat. I won't take any money from the charity, I promise. Coffage also touted the bylaws that We Build the Wall had ratified at the request of the crowdfunding website, stating publicly and in media interviews, for example, quote, "It states in our bylaws, I take $0, no salary, no compensation, and I won't take a penny from these donations, and it's not possible to steal the money. We have an advisory committee. I can't touch that money. It's not for me. We have bylaws set up." It looks like we may have circumvented the advisory committee. Maybe we did it bad. Maybe we shouldn't have done that. Brian Coffage, Stephen Bannon, and Andrew Bellato, the defendants, and others acting in the direction, approved these statements. Again, that would be part of the conspiracy. If you know when you're saying it, they're false, and you're approving it, that will do it. Precisely because they understood and expected donors would rely on the representations which were intended to make the fundraising campaign potential. Indeed, in developing their strategy and emphasizing to donors that Coffage would not be paid a dime, Bannon and Bellato, in text message exchange, discussed how the message would help drive fundraising and opt-ins by prior donors because it would, as Bellato stated, become the most talked about media narrative ever, since it removes all self-interest taints and gives Brian Coffage sainthood. For that reason, Bellato insisted the statement that Coffage will not take a penny of compensation be included in the email to We Build the Wall's donors about the opt-in process, explaining in the email the statement was a material item to the donors. He actually used the words material item. That'll make a lawyer cringe, because one of the arguments a lawyer could always try is it's not material. You know what's really helpful if you're the government trying to prove it's material? If one of the defendants says in a written email, "This is material," that really helps with proving materiality. So the defense could try, "It's not material," and the prosecution can say, "Yes, it is," and the defense can say, can you prove that?" And it's like, I have this email over here from one of the defendants saying this is a material statement. That makes the defense lawyer super happy, let me tell you. Moreover, Moreover, in addition to statements that Colfage, the defendant, would not be paid a dime, Colfage, Bannon, and Bellato, the defendants, conveyed others in leadership of We Build the Wall and its advisory board, which Bannon chaired, which again goes to like direction, control, responsibility, the buck stops here kind of stuff, that they would not be compensated. For example, Colfage wrote on social media, I thought I was pretty clear. I made a promise I would never, all caps, take a penny. 100% of the fundraising through donations will only go to the wall. 100% means 100%, right? Board won't see any of the money. Not great. If it was less than 100%, we may have a problem. Moreover, during interviews and We Build the Wall events, Bannon himself stated, I did this as kind of a volunteer, and we're a volunteer organization. Good. Donors took notice of this core narrative and told Colfage, the defendant, and others for We Build the Wall that mattered to them. Some of the donors wrote directly to Colfage. They didn't have a lot of money and were skeptical about online fundraising campaigns, but they were giving what they could because they trusted Colfage would keep his word about how their donors were spent. That's also super helpful to the prosecutor. You know, it's just like one of those things that makes your life really easier. Like you can obviously make the inference that people relied on the statement, right? So you don't really need direct evidence. Like you made these statements and you got a lot of money. So you can make the inference that people relied on the statement. So that's not that hard. You know what's even easier for the prosecutor? You know what's even easier? If you have a direct statement from the people contemporaneously at the time saying, I am relying on this statement. Based on this statement, this is why I'm giving you money. That's the kind of thing that makes a prosecution's life even much easier, defense lawyers' lives sad. How can I prove causality? Well, I can prove causality. Defense says, how can you do that? Well, I have this email from a person at the time saying specifically, I am giving you the money because of the statements that you made. I'm relying on them. That's how I can prove causality. Prosecution's life is better. Defense lawyer's life is worse. Good times. Colfage also wrote prospective donors who raised concerns, assuring the donors in private messages that he not be compensated. He made overt private statements to me directly. How could you rely on the statements? Because they were made to me personally, directly, actually to me on a one-to-one correspondence. Again, not necessary, but it makes it more shooting ducks in a barrel. This makes it a lot easier for the prosecutor. All these inferences would have been nice, but you know what's even better than inferences? Direct contemporaneous evidence in writing. Even better. These false assurances successfully induced donors to give money to We Build the Wall and opt in to have their private donors transferred to We Build the Wall's new nonprofit entity. Of the original $20 million raised from the hundreds of thousands of donors, most of the donors agreed to opt in and allow their donations to be transferred to We Build the Wall under the false premise that 100% of fundraising through donations will only go toward the wall and that Colfage, the defendant, would not take any compensation. Moreover, We Build the Wall continue to raise new funds from additional voters bad on this representation. In total, between the beginning of the opt-in period in January 2019 and October 2019, We Build the Wall raised approximately $25 million in new or opted-in donor funds upon a false assurance that 100% of the money would go to the construction of the wall. Oops, we might have a problem here. So did 100% of the money go to the wall? Probably not. All right, well, let's read on. Despite these repeated assurances, the public narrative deliberately crafted by Colfage, Bannon, and Bellato, the defendants, and others, was false. In fact, although We Build the Wall spent money on the construction of the border wall, which is the differentiation between fraud in fact and fraud in the inducement, right? So they actually spent money on the wall. So that means it's not fraud in fact. This is fraud in the inducement. Or so I would argue, because they actually spent money on the wall. It's what else they did with it. That's a problem. Hundreds of thousands of dollars were siphoned off of the battle wall for the personal use and benefit of Colfage, Bannon, Bellato, and Shea, the defendant. See, the reason that I call this fraud in the inducement rather than fraud in fact is because you could technically consider them giving money themselves also fraud in fact. But the thing is, like, if they had said we were giving ourselves a salary, like, probably they would have gotten a lot of this money anyway. Like, people would have they've wanted to fund the walls, and like, yeah, we want you to do it. So if they had said we're intending on keeping a salary, they probably wouldn't have got it. They probably would have kept the money anyway. So it's more fraud in the inducement than fraud in fact, at least to me. But you could argue it either way. But yeah, it's more in the inducement. Indeed, despite Colfage's numerous public statements that he was not taking a salary or getting a penny in compensation within days of launching We Build the Wall, Colfage, working primarily with Bannon and Bellato, reached a secret agreement where Colfage would be paid $100,000 up front and then $20,000 per month. That's not great if you're using the funds from the thing you just raised to do that. Because the arrangement was directly contrary to the repeated public representation, Colfage, Bannon, Bellato, and Shea and others schemed to pass these payments to Colfage indirectly from We Build the Wall through third parties, including entities under the control of Bannon and Shea. So we're embezzling money. That's nice. To preserve, because it's money for the charity and for the charitable purposes, and we're taking money out of the charity for purposes that are not within the confines of our charter. So that makes it embezzlement. Yay. To preserve the secrecy of the arrangement to pay Colfage, the defendant, with We Build the Wall donor funds, Bannon, the defendant, agreed to pass payments from We Build the Wall to Colfage through Nonprofit One, which is noted above was controlled by Bannon. So Bannon controlled this other entity. So, putting money on an envelope, to put money in an envelope, to put money in an envelope, to try to wash it clean. This we're putting money in the charity. This is placement, right? So we commingle the funds and so forth and so on. Yeah, we all know how embezzlement works. With the assistance of Bellato, the defendant, and others. In approving that arrangement, Bannon makes clear in the text message to Bellato that there be no deals I don't approve and directed Colfage to be paid indirectly through the non-for-profit in an attempt to conceal the payments from the public, notwithstanding the fact that Colfage did no work for Non-for-Profit One, and the payments from Non-for-Profit One to be funded by We Build the Wall. Yeah, using it as a direct pass-through is not good. Consistent with that scheme, on or about February the 11th, 2019, Bannon and Bellato, the defendants, caused non-for-profit to pay Colfage, the defendant, $100,000 in funds from We Build the Wall. If you just use the money from the non-for-profit to pay them, that would probably be fine. The part that's less than fine is taking money from We Build the Wall to then fund the non-for-profit. That's not a good thing. Also, the fact that he didn't actually work for the non-for-profit is a problem. So actually, that's a violation of two different non-for-profits organizational charters that you're now violating. That's good. The conspiracy mounts. Text messages exchanged between Bannon and Bellato and others confirmed the payment was intended as salary for Colfage, and their payment would be funded by We Build the Wall. So there are text messages, which are in the possession of the U.S. Attorney, along with some emails and stuff. Sounds like the U.S. Attorney's got some evidence here. In particular, the days before the payment, Bannon directed Bellato in a text message to send a wire of cash to Nonprofit One from We Build the Wall, and shortly thereafter, Nonprofit One's bank account received a $250,000 from We Build the Wall. No more than a week later, that same bank account was used to make a $100,000 wire transfer to Colfage. Each in the two remaining months, Bannon again made Colfage each time $20,000 monthly salary payment, consistent with the secret deal that approved, as described above, using funds that had been wired into the bank account from We Build the Wall shortly before the payment to Colfage. The forensics accounting at the federal government has been busy tracing this money, so good times. When Colfage later noticed in a text message to Bellato that at least part of this would result of this path-through payments, We Build the Wall would have to disclose substantial payments to Nonprofit One on tax forms. Bellato replied, "Better than you or me, lol." Okay. To conceal payments Colfage received from Non-for-Profit One, Colfage instructed Bellato the payment should be made to the Colfage's spouse. That'll definitely trick the feds for about 5 seconds. And Nonprofit One has subsequently issued a Form 1099 falsely stating it paid Colfage's spouse for media. Again, fraudulent business documents is also a crime. So it's like, we are creating false business documents, which is a crime, to embezzle money, which is a crime, to do things as a pass-through in violation of two different organizational charters, which is a crime. In order to pay someone for a agreement that we specifically said that we wouldn't do in all our emails, which is a crime. So, yeah, in that short sentence, we committed 5 or 6 different federal... Oh, and also we're in a conspiracy, which is a crime. So how many was that? 6 or 7 in that chain? It's yeah, this is a lot here. Yeah, we got 6 or 7 federal crimes, all kinds of good stuff. Good times. Conceal the payments Colfage received from nonprofit one, instructed to pay the spouse. In fraudulent documents, in 1099s, which also goes to the IRS, which also makes it tax fraud, which is a federal crime. There and after, beginning in about April 2019, and deferred concealed payments of We Build the Wall to Brian Colfage, the defendant, in a secret monthly salary of approximately $20,000, was passed indirectly through other third-party entities that were purportedly vendors of We Build the Wall, including one under the control of Thomas Shea, the defendant. Starting in or about March 2019, Shea, who had been involved in earlier operations of the predecessor campaign and familiar with the repeated promises that Colfage, in particular, would take no salary, so he knew about it, which is, helpful for his mens rea, proposed in a text message exchange with Colfage, paying Colfage and himself out of veiled shell company to conceal the source and payments. Shea suggested to conceal the transactions where, for instance, $600,000 comes in and he transfers $300,000 to Colfage. They create companies that hire them for services like consulting. So that's new companies being created for illegal purposes, which itself is illegal, and then doing the illegal purposes, which is illegal. So we're up to like 9 federal counts on this now, including the conspiracy. To further conceal the secret arrangement, Colfage later told Shea in the email they could falsely describe the payments from a new shell entity as social media. Fraudulent business documents, again, so that's like 10. Consistent with the schemes detailed above, in or about April 2019, Shea, the defendant, incorporated an anonymous LLC and then began receiving payments from We Build the Wall, share of which Shea paid over to Colfage, the defendant. For example, on or about April 22nd, 2019, the shell company received $50,000 wire from We Build the Wall and 4 days later paid half of that amount to Colfage. Good. Again, on or about May 21st, 2019, Shell Company received a $30,000 wire from We Build the Wall, and on or about June the 5th, paid $20,000 to Colfage. Yeah, we've got text messages, we've got emails, we've got banking transaction records, we got corporate documents. Our evidentiary pile is looking pretty good on this one. I know that we have all those things, by the way, because that's like the only way that we would know this information. How would you know that How would you know that a wire of this amount went to this, and then 4 days later it went to this? The only way that you would know that is from the banking records. So that means that they have the banking records, right? They refer to these text messages. How would you know that? Because you have the text messages. They said this in an email. How would you know that? Because you have the email. They said this in a fake 1099. How would you know that? Because you have the 1099. The evidentiary pile is going pretty well. The memo lined on these payments from We Build the Wall to Shell Company 1 falsely stated, as Colfage had suggested, that they're for social media accounts and pages when, in fact, Colfage nor anyone else had done work for the company. Fraudulent business records, embezzlement, wire fraud, banking fraud, conspiracy. It's going really, really... Fraud in the inducement. Business enterprise corruption. Let's just list off felonies until I get bored. Moreover, $20,000 from the shell company to Colfage until funded money from We Build the Wall will remain in subsequent months until at least October 2019, when, as discussed below, the defendants learned that they might be under criminal investigation. Oops. In addition to the payments above, Bellotto, the defense, who also arranged for $20,000 salary from We Made the Wall to Colfage, the defendant that made pass-through bank accounts under the control of 2 of Bellotto's associates. First, in or about June 2019, and paid to Colfage $20,000 of salary from We Build the Wall to the month of 2019, Bellotto gave a $50,000 check from We Build the Wall to an associate, purportedly for work done. Associate 1 then cashed a check and paid $20,000 of the funds to Colfage, keeping the balance. Since associate number 1 is not named by name, that means we're not indicting associate number 1. So if we are not indicting associate number 1, and we have some evidence of associate number 1 did some things, what likely conclusion can we draw from this? What likely conclusion can we draw from the fact that we have this banking records of associate number one, and we're not indicting them, and we know the reason we're not indicting them because we're not mentioning them by name, because that's how we know we're not indicting them. So we're not indicting them. So what does that tell you? It tells me associate number one is a cooperating witness. So we have someone involved in the conspiracy who can testify to some of this stuff that he personally witnessed and observed. Yay. Associate number one then cashed a check and paid $20,000 of the funds to Coffage, keeping the balance. Additionally, in or late January, July, and early August 2019, Bellato caused We Build the Wall to pay over $100,000 to associate number two. The fact that we call them associate number two means we're not indicting them. What can we infer from this? Yeah. Associate number two then paid $70,000 of the funds to Coffage, another $50,000 of the funds to Bellato, and $20,000 to an attorney working on the matter unrelated to We Build the Wall. In total, from the creation of We Build the Wall in January 2019 to in or around October 2019, Coffage, the defendant, received more than $350,000 in donor funds from We Build the Wall, all passed indirectly at the direction and with the assistance of Bannon, Bellato, and Shea, the defendants, through nonprofit company 1, Enterprise Corruption, shell company number 1, Enterprise Corruption, and accounts controlled through Associates 1 and Associate 2. Conspiracy. Coffage then used these funds to pay for his own personal expenses, including, among other purposes, home renovations, payments towards a boat. He bought a boat with the money. Government's going to take that. A luxury SUV, a golf cart, jewelry, cosmetic surgery, personal tax payments, and credit card debt. No, you weren't allowed to do that. Moreover, in addition to Coffage, the defendant Bannon, Bellato, and Shea, the defendants each received hundreds of thousands of dollars in donor funds from We Build the Wall, which each paid for a variety of personal expenses, including, among other things, travel, hotels, consumer goods, and personal credit card debts, in addition to payments described above by Coffage. Yeah, this is not encouraging. With respect to Bannon, in particular, as noted above, Nonprofit One received $1 million from We Build the Wall. And while some of that money was used to pay Coffage, as described above, Bannon used a substantial portion of the funds for personal uses and expenses unrelated to We Build the Wall. So we have Bannon now getting a taste of the money directly. Up until this point, he's been kind of a lackey, but now he's getting a taste. So now he's more of a principal. None of these payments to Coffage, Bannon, Bellato, and Shea, the defendants, were ever disclosed to the public. Indeed, the defendants repeatedly intentionally led the public to believe that none of their donations will be used for personal benefit. Indeed, as Coffage noted to Bellato in a text message exchange, as far as the public knows, no one is getting paid and salaries will never be disclosed. That sounds kind of damning. We have text messages saying, "The public will never find out about this. Ha, 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 ha," as we twirl our mustaches. Good. Defendants conceal their crimes. That's always plus. In and around October 2019, Coffage, Bannon, and Bellato, the defendants and others learned from a financial institution that We Build the Wall might be under federal criminal investigation. There were some sort of flags placed on their account or other things, and they made some deductions. They came to the right conclusion. I'm sure the banking institution didn't say, "You're under investigation." They said some things which led them to that conclusion, because they're not idiots. Yeah, so that's fine. The defendants thereafter took additional steps to conceal their fraudulent scheme. For example, around the time, in reaction to this potential investigation, they began using encrypted messaging applications on their phone. Maybe you should have done that before. And We Build the Wall's website changed to remove any mention of the promise that Coffage was not being compensated and to add a statement he'd be paid his salary starting in January 29, 2020. Coffage also stopped receiving secret payments after this date. Oops. So that's all really good news. So yeah, these guys, it sounds like we have quite a lot of evidence against these guys. You know, we have to read between the lines. But we have text messages, we have email messages, we have corporate books, we have tax records. We have payment records. We have secret messages, maybe. We have a cooperating witness. Evidentiary pile's looking pretty good. And we can get these guys on conspiracy, enterprise corruption, wire fraud, banking fraud, scheme to defraud. So it's just like, what do we want to charge them with today is basically the only question at this point. Statutory allegations from at least on or about December 2019 up to the date of filing this indictment in the Southern District of New York and elsewhere, the defendants and others known and unknown willfully and knowingly did combine, conspire, confederate, and agree with each other to commit wire fraud in violation of the U.S. Code. Yeah, I knew wire fraud was going to come up. It's such a great statute because it gives the U.S. government so much power. It's just fraud using any sort of electronic wire, telephone, internet, any kind of wire. Anything involving a wire that's involved in interstate commerce, which is like all of them. Wire fraud is such a great one for the feds. They love it. I knew it was coming up eventually. It was part and object of a conspiracy that Colfage, Bannon, and Bellotto and Shea, the defendants, known and unknown, willfully and knowingly, having intended to devise a scheme and artifice to defraud of obtaining money and property by means of false and fraudulent pretense, representations, and promises. That would be what we call fraud in the inducement. Would and did transmit and cause to be transmitted by means of wire, radio, and television communications in interstate and foreign commerce, writings, signals, signs, pictures, and sounds for the purpose of the scheme. Yes, that would be what we call wire fraud. Wire fraud is did you, using a wire, a radio, or television that's involved in commerce, do any kind of writing, sign, signal, picture, or sound for the purpose of your scheme to defraud. That's wire fraud. That's a no-no. To wit, Colfage and the others made known and unknown agreed to make false statements to donors that the donations would be used for the construction of the wall and none of the money would be used to compensate Colfage. I think Colfage is going to jail for a while. That's what I think. As further in part of the object of the conspiracy that Colfage, Bannon, and Bellotto, the defendants and others known and unknown, willfully and knowingly, having devised and intended to devise a scheme and artifice to defraud and for obtaining money and property by means of false and fraudulent pretenses, representations, and promises, would and did transmit and cause to be transmitted by means of a wire, radio, or television in interstate and foreign commerce, writings, signs, signals, pictures, and sounds for the purpose of violating this law. To wit, they agreed to make the statements to the crowdfunding website about their intended donation of funds. So we got them for count 1 for wire fraud. Very exciting. Count 2 for money laundering. Yeah. The grand jury incorporates the allegations. From in or at least 2018 up until the date of filing this indictment in the Southern District and elsewhere, the defendants and other known and unknown intentionally and knowingly did combine, conspire, confederate, and agree with each other to violate the law. It was part and object of the conspiracy that the defendants and others known and unknown in an offense involving interstate and foreign commerce, knowing that the property involved certain financial transactions, to wit, wire transactions and checks, represented the proceeds of some form of unlawful activity, would and did conduct and attempt to conduct these financial transactions, which in fact involved the proceeds of specific unlawful activity. That is, the conspiracy to commit wire fraud, knowing that the transactions were designed in whole or part to conceal the disguised nature, the location, source, and ownership. So this is all that stuff where they were hiding where the money is coming from and where it's going. This is all the stuff where that's money laundering. Yeah. So when you're passing money through, when you're laundering, right, you're cleaning the money as it's moving. That's money laundering. So in addition to embezzlement, yeah, because every step of the way you're laundering the money to make it look clean. That's money laundering. Sure is. It's further part of the object of the conspiracy that defendants and others known and unknown knowingly and did engage and attempt to engage in money transactions in criminally derived property greater value than $10,000 derived from this activity, the commission of which is a violation of law. Okay, so far we're just charging them. So far we're only charging them. So far we're only charging them with the wire fraud and the money laundering. But as I pointed out, there are other charges that are possible here. Embezzlement, schemes, false business. I'm surprised the false business papers thing isn't in here. That sounds like I throw that in. Probably some tax stuff. There's got to be some violations. There's always violations of tax law, but we can always amend the indictment later. This is enough to get us started for sure. But I'm surprised. I definitely am not surprised to see money laundering, but I'm a little bit surprised not to see some other stuff in here. Yeah, and also possibly even RICO, as pointed out, possibly even RICO, because we do have 2 predicate acts. So we do have a corrupt organization and 2 predicate felonies within the time period. So we could even throw in a RICO if we were really feeling generous. So yeah, why not throw in RICO? That'd be good. Forfeiture allegations. We would like the money back. As a result of all this, the defendants shall forfeit to the United States, pursuant to law, any and all property, real and personal, that constitutes or is derived from proceeds traceable to the commission of the offense, including, not limited to, a sum of money, currency representing the amount of proceeds. You have to give the U.S. government all the money as a result of your illegal stuff. Any and all funds contained in first bank account number, whatever. So now we get to learn all our bank accounts, which we have all the records of, right? So this is like, now we know all the bank account numbers from all the banks that we found all this stuff in. Any funds from first bank account, any funds from Capital One, any funds from first bank account, any funds from Wells Fargo, held in the name of citizens of the American Republic. What the heck is citizens of the American Republic? Any and all funds in U.S. bank accounts held in the name of Ranch Property Marketing. Any and all funds in Wells Fargo account number held in the name of Freedom Daily LLC. Funds in the Fed Credit Union held in the name of Brian Colfage. Funds contained in Bank First account held in the name of American First Medical LLC. Funds held in Capital One in American First Medical LLC. Funds contained in SunTrust Bank held in the names of White Knights and Vultures LLC. What the heck is White Knights and Vultures LLC? What kind of name is that? White Knights and Vultures LLC? Why not just call it We Are Evil Incorporated? Jeez, Lord. Funds held in a bank account held in the number of Timothy Shea. Real property described as a 2019 Jupiter marine boat named Warfighter. The boat that he spent money on has been christened Warfighter. It's a 2019 Jupiter Marine. Okay. The real property described as a 2018 Land Rover Range Rover with a VIN as follows. So if you're ever government auction and you see a 2018 Land Rover with this VIN, you too can own these guys' Land Rover if you're into that kind of thing at a future government auction coming near you. As a result of these auctions, they shall forfeit any property that's traceable and other stuff we did. And if you sold the property, then we'll get money for it. And that's it. That's the end of that. Okay, great. So, yeah, I think Colfage here is in a lot of trouble. And these other guys are in some trouble. We know the bank accounts. We have the bank account numbers. It was all traceable. We know where all the funds were. We have the bank statements. We have the text messages. We have all that stuff. So yeah, it's not really looking super good. We started a GoFundMe specifically to build the wall, and we told people we will spend the money only on the wall, and we promised GoFundMe we'd only spend money on the wall, and then we spent money on ourselves by funneling it through entities to hide the fact that we were doing that, which was all the sketch. So, Why weren't the unnamed organizations companies that assisted them indicted as well? Couldn't speak to that. Couldn't really speak to why they chose to do the things they did. Doesn't mean they weren't being indicted somewhere else, or they won't be indicted somewhere else. The only super chat I had from Nuvi was $2 ad block fee. Lol, like the stream. Well, thank you, Nuvi, for the $2 of super chats. There is a new SDNY prosecutor. At least there's an acting one. So it's not like, someone gave this indictment. This was signed by Audrey Strauss, the acting U.S. attorney. So the acting AUSA is the one who signed off this. Well, the people that allegedly got defrauded get their money back, or just the government? Just the government. The government gets to keep the money. Yeah. So it does sound like the definition of money laundering. Yeah. It's like, yeah, we collected it, we placed it, and then we washed it. So it's like, yeah, it's money laundering. Hit that like. Please like this. Who's the judge? Oh, there wouldn't be a judge yet. It's just the indictment. I doubt a judge has been assigned as of yet. And even when they plead, or when they have their initial arraignment, whoever they are arraigned to might not necessarily be the trial judge. So it's too early to tell who the judge is going to be. So when they're arraigned, they'll be arraigned before one judge, and that may or may not be the same judge that stays with it the whole time. So too early to tell. We don't know who the judge is yet. The White Knight's office building is a Chipotle. That's good news. Go back and respond to some of your chats from earlier. Tactical said she was ignoring her kitten stream for this. I'm glad you were here, Tactical, as always. Can I comment on the track record of indictment to conviction for SDNY and federal indictments? SDNY is usually considered the most prestigious federal prosecutor's office. The only other one that would be on par would be the District of DC. But SDNY usually is considered the most prestigious. So they have a pretty good track record. Yeah. Good evening. Thank you, Christina. Nice as always to have you here. Glad to have you here. Thanks for covering this, says Billy. Yeah, why not? Cover it and see what it is to say. See what the U.S. government seems like they have a lot of evidence, that you can infer like a lot of things they must have. It's like they know the bank accounts. That means they have all the bank account records. They know about the stuff. That means they have the tax records. They know about the businesses. That means they have the business records. They have a lot of information. So it's not really great. No more whataboutisms when we see these crimes, just lock them up. Yeah, there's no reason. Like, I only use whataboutisms for comparisons of like trying to say like how we're treating one situation versus another, but I see no reason to make a comparison here. It's like, if they did this thing, it's not like, well, there's nothing for me to compare it to. It's like, this is pretty much, you do bad things, you go to jail. So no need for comparisons today. The internet commentator says it reminds you of the felon who called the DA and said, "My name is X. I'm going to do this." Yeah, I don't know if it's the same case that you are talking about, but we did cover one on my channel with a felon who called and said on the guy's voicemail, "This is my name. I'm felon so and so. I am coming. I'm coming. I'm going to kill you. I really mean I'm going to kill you." They didn't just call the DA. They called Eric Holder. Eric Holder. That was who that voicemail went to. It was a great case when we covered it on my channel. And the voicemail was the most incriminating voicemail of all time. "Hi, my name is blank. I am from this city. I am a convicted federal inmate. I am going to kill you. I really mean it. I am coming to kill you. I'm serious. I'm going to kill you." This was the voicemail they left on the voicemail message of Eric Holder. Didn't go well. Didn't go well. Yeah. A lady and said, "Lawyer, I object. How do you know this from the words of your client?" Pretty much. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. If it was just a prank, bro, well, it's a very bad prank. How long until Trump tries to interfere and get this dismissed? I mean, Trump can always pardon him. It's federal crimes. I don't know that he wants to, but he can always pardon them. Why is the money clean when it's in multiple envelopes? It isn't. It's more of a metaphor. The envelopes in this situation where the multiple channels it's going through. So you take the money from one organization, you put it in another organization, so it's in the envelope of the other organization. So it's like trying to make the money clean by like putting it in a different envelope was the analogy I was going for. I'm not sure if that came through. I wasn't really referring to literal envelopes. Anyways. Tactical says if she wanted to go back, she could be a forensic accountant. I think Tactical, you'd be a great forensic accountant. You definitely have the discipline, tenacity, and attention span for it. $2 from Tony, who says, "My take on Netflix Cuties. I know nothing about it, but the title alone scares me." How much of the donor statements would just be hearsay, though? It's not an issue of hearsay. It's an issue of, I mean, you can get them to testify to it. It's a record that exists. You're not offering it for, well, I mean, it's not a problem with hearsay. You get a hearsay exception without breaking a sweat. When I get mens rea, I just take Midol, says Tactical. That's kind of funny. I did get the joke. Very nice. Very, very cute. What if Bannon makes a deal and turns on Trump? I don't know what exposure Trump would have from Bannon to make a deal, but yeah. Does the government get to seize your implants? No, they don't get to do surgery on you to like remove. So if you use the money, if you use your ill-gotten money to give yourself implants, you get to keep those. They can't force you to go under surgery. Now, they can as part of evidence, or at least they can try if they need it. But like, don't worry, it's not a big issue. Will the unnamed companies or organizations be indicted? Maybe, but maybe not. Depends what happened to the hat. I don't have to wear the hat every single time, man. The level of incompetence shown here makes me wonder how much people have to actually have the brain or able to commit fraud successfully. Yeah, probably shouldn't go around sending messages like, I am committing the fraud now. Thank you for helping me commit the fraud. That would be helpful. What is wire fraud? It's just fraud using a wire, which is to say a communication that goes across a literal wire. So if you are on a computer, your things are crossing a wire at some point. So not sure where Rico is. What's the chances Bannon tries for a plea deal? I don't know. Hard to say. Bannon's liability is definitely lesser than Colfage's. Colfage is definitely the principal in all this. Bannon's liability is a little bit more incidental, but it seems like they have enough on Bannon to at least make it. But the proof is a little bit harder on some of these accessory charges. I mean, it's not like it's impossible. It's just not a give me. On Colfage, it's a give me. Without breaking a sweat, I can do it. On Bannon, would take a little bit more effort to show his knowledge and involvement in things. I mean, it sounds like you have enough there, but you have to really lay it out. And it's a little bit more challenging. Yeah. Does it count if blackmail? If Bannon said to Trump he'll snitch on him unless he's pardoned? Does that count as blackmail? Probably. I hope the Biden administration moves on from Trump and won't prosecute anyone. Man, I don't know, man. Some of the people are talking about these like presidential crime commissions. One of the senators said that recently. So, you know. So it seems like there's a lot here. Yeah, I think Kamala Harris would definitely take over. Yeah. Yeah, Kalfaj is dead in the water, so we'll see how it goes. I don't know. There's still a 1 in 4 chance, last time I checked, that Trump could win this thing. What is the 538 prediction poll right now on the presidential model? Let's see. 538 says Biden has a 72%. Trump is 27. So I mean, that's that's still not bad. Trump's odds of winning against Clinton were, what was he at according to 538? I'm trying to remember that far back. I think, was it low 30s that Trump was at in the prediction model on 538 at Clinton? Was it like 32 or something like that? Or was it a little bit less? But it's about the same percentage. So right now, Trump has the same odds of winning, give or take, that he did against Clinton, and there's still a lot of time left to go. So, yeah. 538 is wrong this year like he was in 2016. I don't think 538 was wrong. I don't think 538 is wrong. Or I don't think they were wrong in 2016. Their models, what happened was well within their prediction models. They said that Trump had like a 30% chance of winning, and the scenario that came up was well within their models. So I don't think 538 was wrong. I think they had a fine prediction model. Something that happens 30% of the time does happen 30% of the time. So I don't see that he was wrong. 538 said he had a 10% chance of winning. I don't think it was one of those. I don't think it was that low, evil triple. 538 at the time was, in fact, criticized just before the election. 538 was criticized because their numbers predicting Trump were so much higher than everyone else. Like the New York Times was predicting like 98% or 99% for Clinton to win. And 538 was nowhere near that. And at the time, 538 was being criticized because their numbers were giving Trump a much higher percentage chance than like anyone else. So I don't think it was 10%. I think it was a much higher than that. Camila says, heels up, don't shoot. 538 was dead wrong, you're reaching. I don't see it that way, man. I just don't see it that way. If 538 says there's a 70% chance of Clinton winning and a 30% chance of Trump winning, and Trump wins, then that was well within the prediction model. And you look at like the scenarios that would lead to the 30%, and what happened was well within their prediction models. So I just fundamentally disagree with you that I'm reaching. If you say that there's a 2 in 3 chance of one outcome and a 1 in 3 chance of an outcome, and the 1 in 3 chance outcome occurs, I mean, it is well within your prediction models. It's not something that's particularly surprising. I mean, a third chance is pretty good. A 1 in 3 chance is pretty high. So a 1 in 3 chance is like it's not an unexpected result. So I just fundamentally disagree with you that 538's model was wrong or that they predicted it wrong. I don't fundamentally see that. I disagree. Yeah. So that's what I think about it. Anyways, I'm going to sign off the stream for now. As always, if you've not, for the 117 of you who are watching, if you'd be so kind as to give the stream a like, I'd always appreciate it. If you've not done so already, if you'd please subscribe, I'd appreciate it. If you've not done so already, there should be a join button somewhere on your screen, somewhere where the subscribe button should be. For 99 cents a month, you too can become a member of the Uncivil Law family and help to fund us financially so that we can continue to grow. It's always appreciated. And for the 2 super chats I had today for Nuvi and Tony Nevis, thank you very much for your super chats. As always, it really, really helps, and I really, really appreciate it. But that's all. Until later, my friends, cheers. Goodbye.